thanks for joining me. Recently, we were visiting with my husband's family and had some time to enjoy a day in Istanbul. And usually, when we're visiting Istanbul, we're running errands or visiting with others, and so it's been a while since we've properly had time to sightsee. The city is so big and so rich in history that I can't imagine trying to see it all in a single trip. Originally, we had planned to visit Topkapı Palace, which I still haven't been to, but since the weather was a little bit gray on this day, we decided to switch it up a bit and I just followed my husband's lead for the day. He used to live here for college, so it's like having my own personal tour guide. After having a quiet morning walk in the Kuzguncuk neighborhood, we got some coffee and enjoyed a few minutes along the shore while the city was still waking up. Traffic in Istanbul is notoriously bad, so we parked the car and used public transportation for the rest of the day. I just love that there are so many easy ways to get around in the city. Istanbul straddles both Asia and Europe, and the Bosphorus Strait is the major waterway connecting the Black Sea and the Sea of Marmara. And as you can imagine, this area is always full of activity both on the water and along the waterfront. Tourists and locals alike add to the vibrant atmosphere here. There's a nice open area in Üsküdar along the waterfront where you can do plenty of people watching. And nothing is more exciting than watching the fishermen line the shores with their rods, casting their lines into the Bosphorus. And by the looks of it, the fish were biting. By far, the best way to traverse the Bosphorus is by taking an iconic Istanbul ferry. They're efficient, fairly priced, and certainly more relaxing than taking metro or driving. Plus, you can't beat the views or the onboard Turkish tea. After a pleasant ride through the Golden Horn of the European side of Istanbul, we were on our way to check out the historic Church of St. George. This church is small and unassuming from the outside, considering it is the home of the Orthodox Patriarch. The site had been used by Christians during the early Byzantine period. Inside, you'll find ornate Byzantine mosaics, golden icons, and a wooden patriarchal throne. Just down the street, you'll find the Balat neighborhood. Here, the streets are lined with colorful houses and cafes, and it's a popular spot with tourists looking to take photos, although some areas were a bit too crowded with those looking to have a personal photo shoot. But still, the old buildings painted in all colors of the rainbow were fun to see, and the hills were a nice workout. stopped at this adorable little shop selling art from various artists. They even invited me in the back to watch an artist at work. I especially liked these little framed portraits painted on old tea bags. They had some really fantastic and unique pieces that I think would make fabulous souvenirs if you're looking for something a little bit out of the ordinary. Of course, when we're visiting with my in-laws, my mother-in-law is always making tons of food, and she was sure to send us into the city on this day with some homemade soubré for lunch. We enjoyed a quiet meal in a tiny park with the cats while we admired the exterior of our next stop. Nestled into the heart of Istanbul, the Chora church, now known as the Kariye Mosque, is a serene testament to the city's rich Byzantine heritage. Originally built in the 4th century and later expanded in the 11th century, this relatively small structure was once a place of worship for Orthodox Christians. Shortly after Ottoman rule began, it was transformed into a mosque until the mid-1900s when it was converted to a museum. Just recently, though, it was reopened again as a working mosque. The absolutely stunning mosaics and frescoes, most of which depict scenes from the life of Christ and Mary, are considered some of the finest examples of Byzantine art. And personally, I found them to be even more impressive than what you can see at Hagia Sophia. The small size allows you to enjoy the artwork undisturbed and really appreciate the faiths and cultures which have helped to shape Istanbul. Images depicting living beings are avoided in mosques, and since this former church is currently an active mosque, the mosaics featured in the main prayer hall are covered up during Islamic prayer times. However, they are visible for you to admire outside of these times. Located along the remains of ancient city walls is the Tekfur Saraya Museum. The remains here are of a 13th century Byzantine palace that were damaged during the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople in the 1400s. Today, inside you'll find a small museum. In the 1700s, the building housed multiple kilns and began producing ceramic tiles and pottery. There are examples of these works on display. Perhaps the real draw of the museum, though, is the views you get from their outdoor spaces overlooking a seemingly never-ending Istanbul. While in the area, we also walked to the Eyüp Sultan Mosque. This is a popular mosque for Muslims to visit, and there's actually a mausoleum here for Eyüp Ansari, who was a friend of the Prophet Muhammad. Many people come to get a view of his tomb, but unfortunately it was a little too crowded for us to enjoy at this time, so we'll have to come back another day. But I was able to enjoy the Iznik tile work on display. Along our walk, we came upon this cute little cable car and couldn't pass up the chance for a quick ride to the top of the nearby Pierre Loti Hill. The hill is named after a 19th century French naval officer and writer who fell in love with Istanbul and is said to have even finished one of his novels on this very hill overlooking the Golden Horn. While taking the teleferique to the top, it was hard not to appreciate all the modes of transportation that Istanbul has to offer. We could see cars and buses below, along with the tram, ferry boats, and even the metro in the far distance. With well over 16 million people, there are plenty of options for getting people to and from in this city.
Take a train ride just to see you. Ride for hours just to please you. You don't know how much I need you. 'Cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. Run away from home, why don't you? 'Cause I did the same just for you. You don't know how much I love you. 'Cause you're my home away from home, away from home, away from being alone. I don't wanna stay with you just to have to leave. If it isn't meant to be, still be here eternally. I don't wanna say goodbye, I just arrived. If it isn't meant to be, still be here eternally. I hope to make it my own for the train ride home. I hope to make it my own for the train ride home. I hope to make it my own for the train ride home. I hope to make it my own.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this little video. I really appreciate it. And if you'd like to see more from my perspective as an American living in Turkey, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and giving this video a thumbs up. Until next time, thanks!